boost for the Giants right there in the second quarter.
Was it the greatest catch of all time? Let's bring in a noted sportscaster and whatnot and U.S. Senator Ted Cruz. Okay, you're not a sportscaster, but you love sports.
Oh, look, it was one heck of a catch. That was beautiful. But I will say, y'all know how to make a Texan feel welcome in New York with starting the conversation being a Cowboys victory.
There you go. They did win. They beat the Giants.
That's right. Credit to the Cowboys for that victory, but that catch, I think, is what everybody's talking about today.
Of course, at the end of last week, we were all talking about the President of the United States. Thursday night, he goes into the cross hall of the White House, and he makes his announcement that he's going to do something about immigration because you guys in Congress wouldn't do anything.
It really was unbelievable. And I'll tell you, it's dangerous. I mean, to see a president, you actually can't sum it up any better than Saturday Night Live did. Did you see the opening skit of Saturday Night Live? I mean, it harkens back classic schoolhouse rock, how a bill becomes a law. And you have the bill coming up the steps of the Capitol, and then Saturday Night Live had the president coming out, pushing the bill down the steps of the Capitol. And the amazing thing is that really does sum up what the president is doing. He's saying he is not going to enforce federal immigration law, that it doesn't matter to him what laws Congress passes, that he's just going to decree his own policies. That's really a dangerous, dangerous threshold the president's crossing.
But he blames Congress. He says, do nothing, Congress. This is what he said on ABC's The Week. Take a listen.
You trust us, that's what he said. Anyway, he said...
You guys did nothing.
He said he bent over backwards.
Bent over backwards, would wash Boehner's car, and nothing came across his desk. Therefore, he had to do what he did.
He has a very strange view of how our constitutional system works, which is he demands the policy he wants. And if Congress disagrees with him, he says, well, I'm going to enact it anyway. It's interesting. Just a few weeks ago, President Obama very rightly said his policies were on the ballot all across the country. Democrats didn't like it when he said it, but that's what he said. And then we had an election. And this election was a referendum on amnesty. You look at what Senate candidates, House candidates were campaigning on all over the country. They were saying, we don't want illegal amnesty from the president. The voters spoke overwhelmingly. It was an historic tidal wave. And what does the president do immediately after the election? He responds with anger, with defiance, and says, I don't care what the American people said, even though my policies were on the ballot all across the country, even though the voters said no to amnesty. I'm going to decree it anyway. And yes, he should work with Congress. We should compromise. There's a lot of middle ground on immigration.
What's your next move? As a Republican, what's the move? Is it to block nominations? Is it to shut down government?
So I have laid out a detailed and systematic plan with 2 steps. Number 1, the incoming majority leader of the U.S. Senate should announce, if the president implements this illegal amnesty, that we are going to halt confirming any executive or any judicial nominees other than vital national security positions until this amnesty is ended.
So you'd block Loretta Lynch?
You'd have to debate whether the Attorney General falls within or without national security positions. What I would say is no Attorney General should be confirmed unless that Attorney General makes perfectly clear that they're not willing to be a part of this illegal and unconstitutional
But Senator, there's no debate that the Attorney General falls within the purview of national security. Right. I mean, it's a critical piece of national security, so why wouldn't you block the AG nomination?
Look, my point on that is to set out an overall strategy that we should announce no nominees. And why focus on the nomination and confirmation power? Because it's a check and balance the Constitution gives to the Congress. As you know, the framers in the Federalist Papers, they talked about the dangers of a president taking on the powers of monarchy.
Correct.
And the Constitution gave checks and balances to Congress. One of the most important is confirmation. And so what I am arguing is we should use our constitutional powers, number 1, to say we won't confirm nominees, and number 2, to use the power of the purse to fund the government. And by the way, the only one talking about a shutdown is the president. The president wants to talk about that.
What does this do to our republic in the big picture, Senator? You understand the history of our country really well. It's not about Republicans and Democrats. What does this do to the presidency and the separation of powers?
It is dangerous, and it should scare anybody who's concerned about individual liberty. Look, to all the liberals, and you may have a few liberals watching this show.
We have a lot.
Plenty.
To all the liberals who say, I like this policy, I would suggest to you, what do you think about the next president? Sure. Scripture tells us there came a Pharaoh who knew not Joseph and his children. There'll be another president. And maybe it's a president whose policy views you don't agree with. If the president has the ability to announce, I'm not going to enforce federal immigration laws because I disagree with him, and the president has the same power to say, I'm not going to enforce tax laws or labor laws or environmental laws. That's dangerous. It's why we have a Constitution.
Sure. One of the things he has said is, you know, as soon as Congress comes up with something, I'll tear it up. Why don't you, and you just said here on the couch, it's a problem, and we need to deal with immigration reform. Why don't you guys do something?
Well, the way you actually pass immigration reform is you focus where there's bipartisan
Exactly.
agreement. There's overwhelming agreement. We got to get serious about securing the borders and solving the problem of illegal immigration. And there's also overwhelming bipartisan agreement outside of Washington that we need to welcome and celebrate legal immigrants. You know, I'm the son of an immigrant who came 57 years ago from Cuba. My dad came legally, had $100 in his underwear, washed dishes making 50 cents an hour. You know, one of the groups most hurt by what the president did this week are legal immigrants, people who've waited years, paid thousands of dollars, who followed the rules, and the president said, never mind that. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to open the doors. This action is going to lead to more illegal immigration, which is going to hurt legal immigrants. It's going to hurt African Americans. It's going to hurt working men and women. And for anyone concerned about liberty, it's just dangerous.
Well, the whole country is watching to see what you guys and gals do in Washington.
Thank you, Steve. By the way, Elizabeth, welcome back. You look fantastic.
Thank you, Senator. Great to see you, as always. Thanks
great
for
to be
being
back.
with us today.
Thank you, sir.
Bye, Senator.
All right.